Hello, this is Shay Jackson with Hype Math. In today's video, we will be reviewing for the 2022 Texas STAAR reading test for 4th graders. Our concept is reading comprehension and we're diving into a story, Lizard Problems. This is part 1. Remember 4th graders, believe you can and you will. We have our 4th grade math and reading review workbooks available for purchase in our store. The links are in the description box so that you can grab yours today. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, click that notification bell, and press the like button so that you will be alerted to new videos we upload and also help us spread the word about Hype Math. We greatly appreciate your support. Lizard Problems by Jacqueline Adams. My problem started when I learned that Mrs. Reno would be my 4th grade teacher. She had a lizard in her classroom, and lizards were on my list of terrifying things. And it wasn't a little lizard, it was a Euromastix, as long as my arm and with a spiky tail. Worse, Trent Dillard was in my class again. Last year, I had to sit in front of him because Amy Carlson comes before Trent Dillard in alphabetical order. He knows I'm afraid of spiders, and all year he pretended to put them in my hair. If he found out lizards were on my list, I'd be finished. On the first day of school, I tried not to look at the terrarium in the corner, but Mrs. Reno pulled out the lizard and set him against her shoulder like a baby. "This is Ripley," she said. Trent whispered, "Bet you're scared of him." "I am not," I said. Mrs. Reno looked toward Trent and me. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Amy's scared of Ripley," Trent announced. "No, I'm not." My chest tightened. "I love lizards. They're my favorite animals." Mrs. Reno smiled. "I was going to ask for a volunteer to feed Ripley at recess, but since you're a lizard lover, how would you like the job?" She probably thought I was speechless with joy. Before recess, Mrs. Reno gave me instructions. "You can hold Ripley, but don't keep him away from his heat lamp too long." Don't worry, I thought. She showed me Ripley's bag of greens. I can handle that, I told myself. I'll just lift the terrarium lid, drop in the greens, and run. As Mrs. Reno led the class out the door, she said to me, "Tomorrow, I'll bring in live crickets as a treat for him." I was frozen like a block of ice. I wanted to cry, but my tears were frozen too. Ripley sat still, watching. I knew he was waiting to jump at me the second I lifted the lid. I just stood there for a long time, staring back at Ripley. Voices in the hall told me recess was over. I closed my eyes, lifted the lid, threw in the greens, and slammed the lid shut. Mrs. Reno said, "You must be enjoying your job, Amy. You didn't come out for recess at all." Trent's eyes got wide. I'd fooled him, but now I'd have to spend every recess with a lizard. The only way I got the nerve to dump the crickets in the terrarium the next day was by picturing Trent putting them in my hair if he found out I was scared. My heart raced when I lifted the lid, but I shut it so fast Ripley never had a chance to jump at me. Maybe I could survive this as long as I didn't have to touch that slimy lizard. After a few weeks, Trent said, "Why does Amy always get to feed Ripley? I want a turn." "A way out?" Mrs. Reno asked. "Okay, I guess Amy can have an assistant." I was doomed. After the class left, Trent raised the lid and grabbed Ripley. "Careful!" I cried, surprised that I was worried about the slimy monster. Trent held Ripley while I slowly arranged greens in the terrarium. Trent looked out the window. "Hey, the guys are playing football. Take Ripley." A shiver ran over my skin. You can just put him down." I meant for Trent to put him down inside the terrarium, but Trent set him on the floor and ran outside. "What now?" Ripley walked toward the door. I took a deep breath and grabbed Ripley. He wasn't slimy. His skin was dry and cool, and he didn't jump at me. He crawled into the crook of my arm. "You're not so bad," I whispered to Ripley. The next day, I held him again. Soon, I was even letting him sit against my shoulder. Tonight, I pulled out my list of terrifying things and officially crossed off lizards. I thought about it, then crossed off crickets. Spiders were on my list next. I decided I'd crossed off enough things for 1 year. What a great story. So let's dive into our comprehension questions for lizard problems. Number 1, which statement best describes a main theme of the story? Is it A, it is good to share things you have with others? B, it is important to smile even when you're not happy? C, it is often possible to overcome your fears? Or D, it is helpful for people to work together. Oh, it is helpful for people to work together. Typo, sorry about that. So let's look at our hint, and it's paragraph 33. Tonight, I pulled out my list of terrifying things and officially crossed off lizards. I thought about it, then crossed off crickets. Spiders were next on my list. I decided I'd crossed off enough things for 1 year. So, based on our hint, what do you think is the correct answer for which statement best describes a main theme of the story? What's the theme of the story? Just think about it, about her being scared of lizards and unfortunately being the one in charge of feeding the lizard, but after a little while, her being okay with touching the lizard and feeding him and dumping the crickets. If you said C, it is often possible to overcome your fears, you're absolutely correct. Let's look at question number 2. Paragraphs 1 and 2 are important to the story because they F, provide details about Amy's job, G, introduce Amy's problems, H, explain why Amy is afraid of lizards, or J, show how Amy solves her problem. So let's look at paragraphs 1 and 2 so that we can see how it can help us solve this question. Paragraph 1 says, my problem started when I learned that Mrs. Reno would be my 4th grade teacher. She had a lizard in her classroom, and lizards were on my list of terrifying things. And it wasn't a little lizard. It was a Euromastix, as long as my arm and with a spiky tail. Worse, Trent Dillard was in my class again. Last year, I had to sit in front of him because Amy Carlson comes before Trent Dillard in alphabetical order. He knows I'm afraid of spiders, and all year he pretended to put them in my hair. If he found out lizards were on my list, I'd be finished. So, based on paragraphs 1 and 2, they are important to the story because they F, provide details about Amy's job, G, introduce Amy's problems, H, explain why Amy is afraid of lizards, or J, show how Amy solves her problem. If you said G, introduce Amy's problems, you're absolutely correct because it talks about how Her problem started when she learned that Mrs. Reno was her 4th grade teacher. And then the lizard, which was humongous. Also, Trent Dillard was in her class, who acted like he put spiders in her hair last year. Great job, 4th graders. Let's look at question number 3. Amy does not want to sit near Trent mainly because he A, bothers and teases her, B, tries to talk to her during class, C, wants to look at her list of scary things, or D, wants to help her take care of the class pet. So let's look at our hint. It's paragraph 2. Worse, Trent Dillard was in my class again. Last year, I had to sit in front of him because Amy Carlson comes before Trent Dillard in alphabetical order. He knows I'm afraid of spiders, and all year he pretended to put them in my hair. If he found out lizards were on my list, I'd be finished. So, is it A, bothers and teases her, B, tries to talk to her during class, C, wants to look at her list of scary things, or D, wants to help her take care of the class pet? Why does Amy do not want to sit near Trent? If you said A, because he bothers and teases her, you are absolutely correct. Well, that is it, 4th graders, for our Part 1 of Lizard Problems. Remember, we have our 4th grade math and reading review workbook available for purchase in our store. My name is Shay Jackson, and I will talk to you later.